You can listen to the Canadian Gothic early and ad-free on Amazon Music. Include it with Prime.
And when I turn around to go to the printer, he's like, I don't want to be rude or anything, but you have a nice butt.
And he would leave Polaroids of himself tucked in the clothing that you would find when you were straightening up near the end of the night.
We'd be in the woods drinking, and all of a sudden you'd see him over there with his bike helmet on, and just kind of eyeing you up, you know, and you're just like, man, what is that guy doing over there?
You are listening to Canadian Gothic.
Before we begin, a quick warning that cruelty to animals is discussed during this episode. It's not overly graphic, but it's graphic enough that I felt a warning was appropriate. Listener discretion is advised, and let's get to your encounters with creeps. Miss Madelayne Klein, this is the first Canadian Gothic of 2026, so I thought we should make it a special one. Anyone who listens to Canadian Gothic knows what we're doing here, but for those of you new to the show, many moons ago, I asked listeners of the Canadian Gothic to share with me their experiences with creeps out in the wild. So odd dates, weird coworkers, random freaks on the sidewalk or at the bus station. I expected to get a handful of stories, but I've been continuously receiving these stories to the point that we're now on volume 31 of Your Encounters with Creeps. And we start every episode with what we call like the topical creep, which is just a creep in the news. Usually the creep in the news is a bit more, if not a lot more extreme than the stories we hear from the listeners. And we have a crazy story to revisit tonight. On Encounters with Creeps volume 30, we heard about two creeps in the news, and both have had updates. Let's start with the story of Lindsey Hirtreiter. We referred to her as the baby toucher in Encounters with Creeps part 30. She was the woman who allegedly snuck into the Surrey Hospital's neonatal intensive care unit, took off her shirt, and handled a couple babies, only to be arrested and charged with assault. That alone was one of the most disturbing stories I think I've ever heard, and I think you shared that feeling with me, Madelayne.
Oh, 100%. Because it's like, it's not even just that she's touching babies who are like so sweet and innocent, but like NICU babies.
Speaking now, a month or so later, a lot more is known about her, and the story that's already so disturbing has only gotten worse. As it turns out, in 2015, Lindsey Hirtreiter was charged in another disturbing crime, perhaps even more disturbing than sneaking into the hospital, taking off your shirt, and handling babies who are in the intensive care unit. This is probably the most disturbing case of animal cruelty I've ever heard. And the victim animal's owner is speaking out after learning that the woman who did such a horrible thing to her dog back in 2015 is now in the news for touching babies. Here is the disturbing history of the Surrey baby toucher.
And they're two peas in a pod. They get into trouble everywhere.
At 13, Ryder is a survivor. The black lab seen here with his best friend Gus is a little slower but still thriving a decade after he was tortured, stabbed, and beaten.
It took years for him to recover. I mean, months of recovery, but years in the trauma, and he still has nightmares.
Cassandra Allard, stunned to learn the woman convicted of animal cruelty in the brutal attack on her family's dog, is now charged with 3 counts of assault for allegedly handling babies in the neonatal intensive care unit at Surrey Memorial Hospital.
I was horrified. It makes me sick to my stomach. You know, those parents need to realize how close their newborns were in harm's way.
And there was a big cut in the mouth. I don't know.
In February 2015, Ryder underwent emergency surgery to remove lighters, jewelry, and other objects forced into his stomach, a ring and earring shoved into his eyes. The 3-year-old lab escaped his Surrey home on Valentine's Day and ended up in a basement suite. The suspect's 4-year-old daughter witnessed what happened and went upstairs to get help, covered in blood.
I think both Ryder and that little girl saved each other's lives.
Hirtreiter was apprehended under the Mental Health Act and sentenced to 2 years probation. Her daughter placed in foster care. Allard says her family recently connected with the girl, who grew up believing she and her mother killed their dog.
So she never went upstairs that day to get the help with the landlord. Ryder would be dead today. It makes me sick knowing what she's already done to my own dog and what she could have possibly have done to those babies.
This has to be the darkest collection of stories you could ever imagine. Like, fiction couldn't write something this disturbing.
No. And the animal abuse story is so horrific and nightmarish. And then, yeah, like that woman, she was handling newborn babies that weren't even hers.
An absolute horror show. And I read some of the court documents. What happened is actually much worse than that news report even makes it sound. But as a dog lover myself, I couldn't even bear to repeat some of the stuff I read in those documents. But this woman is dangerous.
I'm wondering what these judges are doing when they're deciding sentences.
Yeah.
And like, is really like in all of history, there's not one animal lover making decisions, because who gives someone like that 2 years probation? Come on.
Yeah, and a part of her defense, like there was some mental health stuff in her defense to these animal cruelty charges, but a part of her defense was that she had psychosis from smoking marijuana. And that was a big part of the decision, is that she like smoked a bunch of marijuana and went nuts, and that was a part of the reason she did this. But seeing as now in present day, she snuck into a hospital, it took off her shirt and held babies, I would think that there's a bit more to it. And the idea that she is out there somewhere in Canada is horrifying to me. I know during December, she was there were bail hearings to see if she would stay in custody while awaiting the trial for the assault charges, but I couldn't find for sure if she managed to get bail. What happened is those bail hearings were happening in the lead up to Christmas, and like reporting seemed to just shut off on this case. So I really don't know where this stands, but this case is so gross. And you know, we on Encounters with Creeps, we talk about trauma with a lowercase t. We always say that. The creep encounter stories that our listeners send us are a big step down from this. But the story of Lindsey Hirtreiter, I think this is just an example of how far and disturbing these creeps can actually get.
Oh, this is by far the worst one we've ever had. And we've had bad ones. Yeah. I think this is the worst.
Any stories about harm to children or babies is like way too far. Same thing goes for animals, especially dogs, cats too. Well, really any animal.
And then the torture aspect of it just like adds another layer of disgust. Yeah, I don't know. I wish nothing but the worst for her.
Yeah, and having her daughter involved in this, her daughter had to go upstairs. They were renting a basement apartment, so the daughter, who was like 4 or whatever, realized what they were doing to the dog was wrong. So she went upstairs to get the landlord, who lived in the upstairs apartment, covered in the dog's blood. I should probably have a warning at the beginning of this episode, and I am going to.
Yeah.
But all that to say, this was trauma with a capital T. Let's take our first break, and when we come back, we'll move on to the listener contributed stories of their encounters with creeps, and we're going to take the tone way down. We have some really good ones. We're going to visit a Bluenotes in Fredericton. We're going to go to HMV in Ontario.
Nice.
We're going to head to a grocery store in Texas. And then we'll stop at I think it's a hospital, and we can check out Julie's butt. We'll do that after this short break.
A lot of shopping and a butt. Nice.
So Madelayne, when we cover creep encounters, I like to try to find some kind of themes or patterns or categories. This first segment of listener-contributed encounters with creeps is certainly going to be stories of creeps at work. Let's go to Fredericton. This is an interesting one, and this is the story that is memorialized in the cover art of this episode. This is a listener named Heidi who is going to tell us about some creepy souvenirs that a creep left behind at Bluenotes, where she worked. Should we explain what Bluenotes is? It's a clothing store. I don't know if it's only Canadian.
Yeah, well, that's really all you need to say is it's...
Yeah, it's a jeans company. You have them whatever country you live in.
Yeah.
Here's what happened to Heidi.
Hi, this is Heidi from Fredericton, and I have a story that took place in the 1990s at the Regent Mall. I used to work at the mall in a clothing store, Bluenotes then, and there was somebody, some creep, that was going around for a period of time, and he would leave Polaroids of himself tucked in the clothing that you would find when you were straightening up near the end of the night. And so one night I'm going and fixing the t-shirts, and there's this picture, a Polaroid, and I flip it over, and there's a picture of him from his chest to his knees, of him in the bathroom with his leg propped up on the toilet and his junk on full display. And he did this in many stores. You just randomly come across a picture, and it went on for months, all the stores, and we never did figure out who it was. That is creepy.
We're starting off strong. That is creepy, but I actually love that story. I love the kind of like urban legend feel to it.
Right, because this whole time I'm thinking that like they know who's doing it. But no, they don't know who's in the photo.
This is unsolved.
Oh my gosh. Oh, that makes it even better.
I wonder if the police investigate it because they would have their suspects and they'd be like,
very illegal.
They could have a lineup of men with their their legs up on the toilets.
You want a lineup of penises.
The thing about this story, like I'm able to laugh at it because I'm thinking people who are finding these Polaroid photos would be adults, but that's not necessarily always the case. So this is an awful story, of course, but when you hear of the weird fetishists and stuff that we often rub up against here on Encounters with Creeps,
Sure.
This is one of the many unique ones, and this is clearly some kind of fetish thing.
Could you imagine arresting someone and then like going through his pockets and finding a bunch of nudes, like Polaroid nudes?
Yeah, the creepiest type of photography is certainly any kind involving Polaroids.
Yeah.
Like it's an inherently creepy type of media. What this story reminds me of is I covered on Canadian Gothic years ago an artist, an outsider musician named Datta. He's a man in Ontario who became famous on the internet in the early days of YouTube, I believe, for making like music videos with heavily sexualized content. But one of the ways I interviewed him on Canadian Gothic, and one of the ways he used to spread his music in the early days in his career in the 1980s is he used to go to video rental stores when VHS was a thing, and he would rent whatever the most popular video was, let's say the Titanic movie or something. He'd bring it home, and he would, at like the main scenes, he would tape over the VHS, putting his music videos there with like his phone number and stuff. So people would rent that movie, and just when he was going to get the girl, all of a sudden a Datta video would start playing, and I couldn't help but be reminded of this.
That is genius.
This is a whole different version of that. This is like the Creep Encounter version, where you're just stuffing something incredibly creepy in pockets of clothes at the mall.
That's the 90s unsolicited dick pic. Imagine.
It is, right? This is the guy. This is the guy that invented the dick pic.
Yes, clear the grandfather of dick pics.
Well, it's the problem with this, though. I would think
the founding father.
If you get off on someone being surprised by seeing this, you would think you would need to see them see it. Like, I wonder if he sticks around the store to see if he can catch them, finding it, or does he just get off knowing that someone someday is going to stick their hand in that pocket and boom?
It's got to be the latter. Like, it has to be.
Strange things happened at the malls in the 80s, 70s, 90s. It was a different time, and we've had several stories, and we're going to have one tonight that involve like kids alone at the mall having a creep encounter. We've heard several stories like that on Encounters with Creeps. Let's just move right into one, because the next story that takes place at an HMV in Ontario from a listener named Emily involves that very scenario.
Are there still HMVs?
It's closed, and for a while it was a section in Toys R Us. It was like in Toys R Us there'd be like records and CDs and stuff and movies, but now Toys R Us are out of business. I shouldn't say they're out of business. They're closed, and almost all the sites in Canada are closed, but there are still some Toys R Us in Canada, and the ones that still are open probably have a section called HMV. But when this in the back in the days of the thriving malls, HMV was a standalone music and video store,
and a good one.
Let's go to Ontario and hear what happened to Emily inside one. And this is a story, a creep encounter. I think I can solve this one. Listen to this.
Nice.
So, hi. Love your podcast and all the stories. It's my favorite way to commute to and from work. I wanted to share my creeper story. I grew up in Ontario, and it was one of those times where your parents would drop you off at the mall and you would shop with your friends. I must have been like 14 or 15 years old, And my friends and I were looking for a birthday gift for one of our other friends. So at the time, HMV that sold like CDs and music for all those younger listeners, we went in and we were looking for either a CD or something to do with our friend's favorite band, which was the Red Hot Chili Peppers. So we're looking through the aisles, talking about what kind of Red Hot Chili Peppers. Should we get her a poster? Should we get her a CD? And a man comes up directly behind me and like almost leans and whispers into my ear, "Nobody gets out of here alive." I didn't scream, but I definitely made like a very loud, scared noise. And I turned and I was like, "What?" And being the young teenagers we were, we kind of started to walk away. And he kept following us, trying to say, "Nobody gets out of here alive." He luckily didn't follow us out of the store, but apparently that's the name of either a book or something related to the Red Hot Chili Peppers. But it was the creepiest thing because I remember him being like a lot older than us and wearing like 90s or like 2000s Gothic wear, which when you're early teen really creeped me out. I've never looked up the Red Hot Chili Peppers if anyone gets out of there alive, but that's my Canadian creeper story.
So I told you I think I can solve this. It is creepy to hear someone saying that, but I think what this guy was trying to do was trying to convince her and her friends to buy something from a good band, because No One Here Gets Out Alive is a book about Jim Morrison, the singer of The Doors. And this reminds me a lot of, there was a Kids in the Hall sketch. Kids in the Hall was a Canadian comedy show, kind of like Saturday Night Live, except way better. But it reminds me of this skit they did where people are going into like a record store trying to pick out whatever the newest record is, but the record store owner only likes The Doors. And it's like, if it isn't The Doors, he hates it. So he's trying to get, people to get into The Doors.
Excuse me.
Yeah?
Do you have the new Depeche Mode record?
Yeah, it's over there. But it sucks.
Do you have the latest Pixies album?
Yeah, but it sucks. All that new stuff sucks, but it's over there.
Actually, I was thinking of getting into something vintage anyway. I don't know, maybe The Doors?
Really? Never had you figured for a Doors fan.
I'm not really a Doors fan, but sure, I'd like to get into them.
No, my friend. Doors fans aren't made. They're born. Here. Take this. It's an 8-track tape. It's one of the last in existence. I want you to steal a car.
I have a car.
Steal a car.
Steal a car.
Get in it and drive west. Play the tape full blast. When the tape ends, get out and get into a fight. Then get back into the car and come to town and meet me at the Cargus Club.
Then what?
Then you're gonna be a Doors fan, man.
I feel like what was happening here was a socially awkward person was trying to say to her and her friends, don't buy Red Hot Chili Peppers stuff. Buy an album by The Doors.
I think you're onto something, and I agree with almost everything except for the inferral that the Red Hot Chili Peppers aren't a good band. There's something wrong with you. Like, we know this, but how dare you?
I'm not going to say they're not a good band. They had a great period. And I've been a fan of Red Hot Chili Peppers for most of my life, but compared to The Doors, come on. I can see why a Doors fan would suggest maybe passing up the Red Hot Chili Peppers. As well, at the time in the mid-90s, the Red Hot Chili Peppers were a huge popular band. So I could see a lot of like old school Doors fans being like, nah, this new stuff sucks.
Oh, for sure.
But all this to say, if you Google Red Hot Chili Peppers, No One Here Gets Out Alive, or Nobody Gets Out of Here Alive, there is no match. That's only a reference to The Doors and the lyrics to a song called 5 to 1.
Okay.
But if it isn't a reference to The Doors, then yes, this was in fact a creep encounter.
Oh.
Because that is a weird thing to listen to whisper in some kids' ears.
No, even if it was a Doors reference, this guy's a weirdo. Like, listen, I love music, and I'm not claiming to be the most normal person either. But like, I'm sure HMV was frequented by the most colorful people you could imagine.
That's a good point. So whether or not this guy is a creep or it was just like a socially inept misunderstanding, will remain a mystery. This next story that we'll hear, it's going to take place in a grocery store in Texas. A listener named Charlotte is going to share it. This is also one that could be a creep, but I think it could also be a misunderstanding. Let's hear what happened at that grocery store in Texas.
Texas.
Did I pull it off? Listen to this, y'all.
Hey guys, my name is Charlotte from Texas. I really love the Encounters with Creeps series. Anyway, I work in a small little grocery store. There's an older lady that is a cashier as well, and she was checking out this guy customer, and I noticed that his arms were like down over his junk. It kind of looked like, okay, in middle school when, boys start getting boners and they like use a book to hide it. It kind of looked like that. It was weird. And so I kept my eye on him. And when she was done checking him out, I watched him, leave and start to walk out the door. And as he was walking out the door, I saw him zipping up his pants. This man was touching himself while an older lady cashier was ringing up his groceries. It's absolutely wild to me. Anyway, thanks for listening.
So I have a theory on this, but I'd like you to take the lead on it first. What do you make of this story?
I don't know. I'm a trust your gut kind of gal. And Charlotte seems pretty adamant that she saw what she saw. And I'm on Team Charlotte.
Yeah, but what she seemed to see is this man kind of like blocking his private parts and separately to that, zipping up his pants. But nowhere does she imply that he had his penis out or had an invisible erection or anything like that. So I don't want to be Mr. Creep Defender, but what if, while going through the checkout, the man realized his pants were down?
Down?
Or that his fly, the man realized that his fly was down, and he thought, the man realized his fly was down, and he thought to himself, if I pull up my fly right now in front of her, that's so creepy. So I'm just going to cover it up. And as I'm walking out of here, I'll just zip up my fly and no one's the wiser. Not realizing that 2 aisles over, creepy Charlotte is staring at this man's crotch and catches the whole thing in a misunderstanding that ends up in episode 31 of Encounters with Creeps. Is this possible?
You've got me convinced. You'd be a good lawyer.
Team Jordan or Team Charlotte? I would. But
it's not a bad
that said,
theory because you're right. Nothing's seen. And like I would be, that is something that I would do. Like something is not important but still embarrassing as having your fly down. I'd be like weird about it too.
Well, I wouldn't, and I've been in that situation before. I'll admit it right now. I have one pair of jeans, and there may even be something wrong with the zipper. They're like my favorite jeans, but the zipper, I find it falls down a lot, and I'm often like, oh crap, and I'll like kind of pull my jacket down a little bit to hide it or something, and then like when there's not someone standing next to me, I can fix it. I should get new. Long story short, I should get new jeans because I may be this man, but I've never been in Texas.
I have been to Texas.
Innocent.
This was 10 years ago, mind you, but it was fun. We went for the 4th of July.
I like warm, dry air. So I think I should have been born in, Texas, somewhere like that.
Yeah, that's about right. I should have been born in like Croatia.
Really?
I should have been born a Croatian millionaire. That's what I should have been born.
Our next story comes from a listener named Julie, and I think she should have been born anything but in the situation she found herself in a hospital while waiting on a patient that had a real thing for her butt. Listen to this story.
Hi, my name is Julie Wicks, and I am from Michigan. I have a creep encounter that happened while I was at work. I work in healthcare, and my creep story is a patient came in. I was all alone at the front desk, all by myself. Everybody had gone to lunch and left me. And he came in, and like I normally do, I open the window, and I'm like, hi, like, how can I help you? And he tells me, like, his name. So I look it up, and I'm like, okay, like, let me see if I can try and, like, figure out what's going on. And when I turn around to go to the printer to, like, grab the paper that I need to show, like, the nurse, he's like, I don't want to be rude or anything, but you have a nice butt. And I was like, thank you? I kind of just, like, decided, okay, like, whatever. He's just, like, an old guy that's just admiring my butt, I guess. And I was just like, okay, like, I'll let that slide. So then I sit down and I start typing a message for him. And he asked if I was married. And I was like, okay, that's weird. I was like, yes, like, I've only been married, like, a couple months. And he was like, well, if I was your husband, I would have already pumped in 6 kids into you by now. And that's when I was like, okay, I gotta go. Like, I am alone with this man, and I need to leave. And so I was like, okay, like, I'm gonna go check with the, like, nurse. Like, I'll be right back. And I, like, bolted out of this, like, office area into the back by my nurses. And just so happened to catch my boss. And I was like, this patient just said all this stuff to me, and I am so uncomfortable, and so, like, I don't want to go back out there and talk to him. And my boss, thankfully, was awesome, and she was like, absolutely not. We're not going to tolerate this. And she basically told him that he needed to leave and that he was no longer allowed to be a patient at the practice. So that's my creep story. And yeah, don't be creepy to people.
Congratulations, boss. You did the right
Win
thing.
of a boss. 10 out of 10. No notes.
I wonder what kind of healthcare it was, because that, like, at some hospitals, you kind of have to probably put up with stuff like that. Maybe this wasn't a hospital. If it was like a private practice,
It sounds like if they can fire a patient, it's like a doctor's office.
That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, that kind of stuff wouldn't happen in Nova Scotia. I hope not. Doctors are so few and far between and hard to come by here. I can't imagine anyone acting a fool like that at a doctor's office. But that said, as those words just left my mouth, I thought, I bet you a lot of gross stuff happens even at family doctor's offices here in Nova Scotia. But anything in healthcare, you just have to be, like, so up close and personal with the creeps in the patients, which are often one and the same.
I think that it wouldn't have mattered, the environment. That guy was waiting to use that line. Oh, it's just so gross and creepy.
Is it every part of it? You know, you got a nice.
Because it's also impossible. Like, do you know how having children works?
Yeah.
I hate it. I hate it.
Yeah.
I hate it so much.
I can picture, like, it's kind of cinematic. He goes up to the desk, whatever happened, she has to print something, which puts her in a position where she needs to walk away from him, comes back to him. So he then makes that comment. So obviously he's just leering at her as she walked over to the printer. Then she mentions that she then sat down. And I'm thinking that's her just trying to, like, hide her butt from this guy. And that's when he ramps it up. I would have pumped so many kids into you. That is that is a disgusting comment to make.
And also, I want to know what he thought was going to happen. Does he think that's flirting?
Or a compliment? Do you think it's...
Do you think he thinks it's a genuine compliment? See, here's something I didn't consider.
Yeah, what if you're, like, kind of like a creep, but also a narcissist, and you think that your word is so important that, like, maybe he thinks being, like, a creepy narcissist, that saying that would make her be like, wow, a guy like that pumping 6 or 7 kids into me? Jeez, I'm gonna move him up on the priority list and get him his own private room.
It's also baffling. It's just also baffling.
It is so baffling, but creeps are baffling. Creep stories are baffling. Here on Volume 31, I would like to know a total, but I think we've done at least 120 creep stories, and we still got a bunch more tonight. Let's take our second and final break. When we get back, we're going to catch up with another story we discussed in Volume 30, and I'm talking about the bathroom creep, which is the convicted sex offender who was arrested after sneaking into a school bathroom in Winnipeg and grabbing a kid in the bathroom. We'll catch up on that story after this break. Madelayne, in Volume 30 of Encounters with Creeps, we discussed Scott William George. He's the convicted sex offender who was arrested after a disturbing incident in a school bathroom. Much like the baby toucher, the story of the bathroom toucher, it turns out that the incident in the school bathroom that got William Scott George arrested was one in a series. I'm going to play you a short news clip that talks about the other charges he's faced since we released episode 30 of Encounters with the Creeps.
More charges are being laid against a suspect accused of grabbing a student in an elementary school bathroom. Police say 2 incidents were reported early this month by a high school in the Louis Riel School Division. Investigators say security cameras caught a man wandering through classrooms and hallways after school hours on November 20th. A laptop was also reported stolen. A few days later, a man was seen inside the same school during the day. Officials say he wandered the first and second floor before he was discovered by staff and escorted out. 28-year-old Scott William George was rearrested yesterday at the Provincial Remand Centre on charges of theft and failing to comply with probation orders regarding children. George was arrested 2 weeks ago after a student at a St. Vital Elementary School was grabbed in the school's bathroom. He has a lengthy criminal record and has previously pleaded guilty to sexual interference.
So just to recap some of this guy, when we heard about him grabbing a kid in an elementary school bathroom, we talked about his criminal history that involved grabbing a kid in a movie theater who was watching a movie with her parents. At the police station, he was then caught in the bathroom of the police station masturbating. The guy has a history of abusing inhalants and various other drugs. But what we now know from this update is that in the weeks leading up to the incident at the elementary school bathroom, he was sneaking around other schools. Like, it seems like this guy's thing, despite court orders to stay away from kids, he has a thing with just like sneaking in schools and roaming around. What his motivation is, I don't know. He did steal a laptop, so you could say theft. But then again, he also grabbed a kid, so you could say pervert.
Right. And whatever it is, it's not good. And honestly, just sneaking around schools like that while under an order to not be close to them, that should be enough to put you away for like 10 years.
Yeah. You know who has some really strong opinions about this? A listener named Amy. After we released Volume 30, I got a voicemail from a listener named Amy who I think just had a lot to get off her chest about her thoughts on this bathroom creep and the justice system's handling of him. Listen to this.
So I'm just listening to Volume 30 of Encounters with Creeps. And the story about that subhuman going into the schools, and this wasn't the first time. After listening to everything you mentioned about his history, I'm actually shaking inside. He will be let loose again and again until there is a death of a child. And then he'll still be let loose in 25 years. If you cannot lock him up and throw away the key, then why are they not chemically castrated and severely monitored? Truly, there's something wrong with our justice system here in Canada. How many times does it have to happen? I'm guessing there will have to be a death before something is seriously done about this creep. Oh, my blood is boiling. Love you guys.
Preach, Amy.
Love ya.
After that.
I mean, she's not wrong though.
She makes a lot of good points.
She did not tell one lie.
Yeah, I don't know, and I don't know if you know, but is chemical castration a thing? Like, even for the worst of the worst sex offenders, would they do that in Canada?
Oh, would they do it though?
Yeah, I know it's a thing, but in Canada, like, would a court ever order you? I can't imagine it would.
Even if someone was sentenced to that, it wouldn't ever get put through.
Yeah,
like it would. No, I don't know. I don't think it would. Like, great idea on paper, but I don't think anything like that would ever get passed.
I can't imagine either, but it is a good point because you hear of these stories that it's just a repeated thing. Like this guy, he's done horrible things, yet he was still able to sneak into schools and grab kids in the bathroom. And Amy makes a good point. What will it take for something to happen? Yeah, just like with the baby toucher that we talked about earlier, she tortured a dog, yet she's still free to sneak in and touch babies. And I'm sure nothing bad is going to happen to her. Nothing too serious is going to happen to her as a result of touching the babies, because it's just a couple of assault charges.
Right.
So she'll be out again.
Hopefully they can take her past into consideration. I don't know how all that works.
But even if they do, what is the harshest sentence you can get for an assault charge? Even though it's an assault in that bizarre situation against a baby, there's mental health stuff going on. I think both of these people, are going to be walking the streets in no time.
That's why we need to start handing dangerous offender certifications out like candy.
I'm all for it.
Just lock them up, throw away the key, and see them never.
Okay, well, let's hear about a creep who did get some justice. We'll move back to our final segment of listener-contributed encounters with creeps. We have some good ones here. The first one is going to be a listener named Shelby, who, when she was pregnant, had a creep encounter with a coworker, but there was some justice, although it was a little unique. Here's the story of Shelby's pregnancy creep, who got Chris Hansen.
Oh, no.
Hello, Jordan and Madelayne. This is your correspondent in the States. I live in Pennsylvania. I'm here to tell you my encounters with creep story. It involves when I was pregnant. It was about 3.5 years ago. I worked at my old job, and it was the summertime. I was probably 6-7 months pregnant. So I wore a lot of dresses. And so we worked with a guy, we'll call him K. And he was a little bit older than most of the girls there. We were kind of not younger girls, but mid-20s to early 30s. That was the age range of a lot of the women that I worked with. And K was older. He was almost 40 years old, 38, something like that. So anyways, and all the girls, we thought he was weird, thought he was creepy, kind of rude, narcissistic, little misogynistic. So we all didn't like Kay. But when I was pregnant, like I said, I was 6 or 7 months pregnant. It was the summertime. It was hot, humid. I was wearing a lot of dresses just to stay cool. And every time I wore a dress, he would have to comment on it. He would be like, "Oh, I saw you in your dress this morning. You looked really cute. Oh, you look so good in your dress. I bet the baby loves the sun. Oh, I bet the baby loves to feel the warmth." He would always say something along the lines of "Oh, you look good," but something also about the bump. Or he'd say things like, "Oh, it looks like you're growing." But anyways, so we all got the ick. I got the ick. I was like, "Leave me alone." But in the end, we were right. He was creepy because a couple years later, after all that had happened, he didn't work with us anymore. He got fired. He got busted. Basically, he got Chris Hansened. There was a guy here locally who would set up guys on the internet who were looking for underage girls, and he would imitate the girl and set them up, and they would go to meet, and the people would think that they'd be meeting the underage girl, and then they'd really be filmed and be like, "You're a pedophile, you're a pervert." And so basically Kay got Chris Hansen a couple towns away, trying to meet up with a 14 or 15-year-old, and he showed up with condoms and marijuana, but yeah, he ended up going to jail for a little bit for that. But see, us women, we are right when we feel that there is a creep. We are most likely correct. So yeah, that's my encounters with creep story. It's trauma with a lowercase t. But yeah, still creepy nonetheless. Okay, thanks for letting me share.
The type of content, the Chris Hansen content that she describes, you see that stuff on the internet all the time, but I've never heard of someone like rubbing up against that in the real world.
Right, exactly. Oh, that's scary.
Yeah, interesting callback to some of the prior stories, though. Shelby says, when a woman gets the feeling that someone's a creep, trust it because they're right. That reminds us of the stories that I defended the creeps on. The story of the HMV creep, who I thought was just trying to recommend the doors, and Charlotte's creep, who I suggested was maybe just trying to be subtle with his correction of his fly. I think Shelby would say, no, they are both creeps.
Well, if Shelby doesn't have anything to say, some random person on the internet will. So just you wait, Jordan.
Yeah, I'm going to get it.
Just hang on.
Any kind of a creep encounter involving a pregnant woman is one I know that hits a little close to home with you, Madelayne, where you were famously pregnant.
Now I'm famously a mother.
Instead of creeping out the pregnant woman, they're like, Jesus, that woman and her kid.
Yeah, pretty much.
Loud kid.
What's wrong with those two people?
It's a loud kid. Wow.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Pretty much it. You got it.
What I don't get is the strange and unusual things that happen in the strange and unusual province of Newfoundland. It seems on the Canadian Gothic, whenever Newfoundland's mentioned, whether it's on Keep Canada Weird, Encounters with Creeps, or just a standalone bizarre story of Newfoundland, it always has this unique flavor that is so uniquely Newfoundland, and I can't quite describe it other than it's a 709 kind of thing. Our next story, which is the area code for Newfoundland,
it's indescribable.
Yeah,
it really is.
I worked for years for a company that serviced all of the Atlantic, the Eastern Canadian provinces, and it was mostly done by phone. And whenever the phone would ring and you'd see the 709 area code, I'd pull my coffee close and think like, here we go.
I'm going to be busy for the next 45 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. It's about to get weird. As Brian, our next storyteller, knows, Brian is from Newfoundland and he encountered a creep in the woods that he wants to tell us about.
Creep in the woods.
How's it going, guys? Just wanted to add something to what you guys are doing. I think it's great. I can't imagine how many calls you guys get with encounters with creeps, because there's so many creeps. And it got me thinking, like, growing up in a small town, rural place, like I live in Newfoundland. You guys have mentioned many times in this show, you guys understand what Newfoundland is like. But yeah, so anyway, going on about my creep story, which I have multiple, but like I think this one's kind of funny, so you guys would enjoy it. We had this local super creep and nobody really knew it. He was involved with the community really heavily. The ski club that was here, the Nordic Ski Club, was kind of off out of the woods, and he would hire kids to go up and do work on the property and stuff like that, and would pay them well and treat them well. But he was always kind of weird, and the guys that went up there and worked, they always said, man, but he's kind of creepy. Like, so anyway, through the jigs and the reels, we were used to go out and hang out around the skate park and the ice hockey rink and stuff like that was in our community. So there was woods behind there, so we would go and hang out in there. Sometimes we'd drink, just being typical teenagers, and we would see this guy. So like we'd be in the woods drinking, and all of a sudden you'd see him over there with his bike helmet on, and just kind of eyeing you up, and you're just like, man, what is that guy doing over there? Like, and we always thought it was like he was trying to catch us drinking or catch somebody buying us alcohol. So this one day, my friend, he had a dirt bike. It was like an old Honda from the 80s. And anyway, he used to drive it around, but it had no brakes. So anyway, we were in the skate park, and this guy Steve comes up and he says, man, he said, I just ran into so-and-so over there in the trail on my dirt bike. And I said, what? And I said, is he okay? And he was like, man, he's like, he had his pants down. And I said, what? He's like, I came around a turn. He was stood in the trail with his pants down. And he's like, I got no brakes. I couldn't stop. And I ran right into him. He's like, but to make it like even crazier, he's like, when I ran into him, he got up, pulled up his pants, and was just going, oh, no, don't worry about it. It's my fault. I shouldn't have been there. It was my fault. Don't worry about it. And he was real weird about it. And I was like, Steve, like, that's crazy. Like, and I never dawned on me that like what this man was actually doing, watching us and hiding in the woods with his pants down and his pants open and stuff like that. And so like, you never know like who's around, like what creeps are around. I find it really crazy. And that's just one story of like one creepy dude. Like, But hang in there, guys, and watch out for the creeps. Keep doing what you're doing because it's great. I love listening to you guys.
Oh,
See what I mean? Newfoundland has a special flavor. There was so much of interesting moments in that. The first one is I learned that through the jigs and the reels. I think as a figure of speech, that means like over the years.
I guess I liked it. I liked listening to him talk.
Why does this creep have a bike helmet on? And he just mentioned that in passing. Like Brian telling the story, and he's like, he's always just standing over there with his bike helmet on.
Well, and just everything about this is so ridiculously Newfoundland. So yeah, my buddy had a dirt bike. Brakes didn't work. So
there's just always this little
he was
caveat.
driving it around there.
Yeah, there's always this little caveat that makes it interesting. And the guy was standing there with his bike helmet on. If I was going to defend this creep, I would say maybe he was using the bathroom. But what are the chances that you're taking a leak in the middle of a trail while some guy charges towards you with a motorbike with no brakes? Like, that's just like getting hit by a shooting star. You're standing in the woods.
I'm not a man, but if I were, I don't think I would pull my pants all the way down to take a pee.
No, you wouldn't. And you wouldn't do it in the path. And also you would, like, if you were peeing in the woods, you would hear a motorbike coming and you'd be kind of looking over your shoulder like, I don't want some stranger to see my private parts. I'm going to, like, make sure I'm good. This guy was so, with his pants down, was so distracted by whatever he was doing. I think his name was Steve, managed to drive right into him on the motorcycle in the world's weirdest motorbike accident in Newfoundland's storied history.
Poor Steve. He like stumbles up to his friend. Like, never gonna believe what just happened.
Wow, what a story. I enjoyed that.
That's in the running for my favorite tonight, but I know we have at least one more.
We have at least one more, and it is a good one. We're going to hear from Elizabeth. This is going to be a story of a weird date or a date gone wrong. It's going to involve dating a guy that isn't a serial killer, but does play one on TV.
Hey, Jordan and Madelayne. This is Elizabeth from Vancouver, BC. I love the Creep Encounters series, and I have a submission of my own for you guys. So this story takes place when I was probably, 20 years old. I was online dating, as that seems to be how you meet people. And there's this guy that I was, chatting with for a while, and he seemed really nice. So we made a plan to meet up. And so we met up, we went bowling, and things were going really well. He seemed, super fun. Conversation was great. So once we're done our bowling, he asks if I want to come back to his place for a drink. Being young and dumb, of course, I was like, yeah, totally. That sounds great. So in hindsight, definitely shouldn't have gone. But anyways, so, I drive my own car, meet this guy at his place. I'm like, at least I have my car. I can leave if I need to. And so I get there, and the first red flag is I walk in, and his house is just like a disaster. Like, not just messy, but like dirty. Like, it seemed like there was just stuff everywhere, like garbage. Like, I was kind of like, oh, great, like, awesome. I don't really want to be hanging out in this environment. But I was like, I said I'd come for a drink, so I'm like, I'll have my one drink and then I'll find a reason to leave, kind of thing. So we're, having our one drink, and we're chatting about, our hobbies and, our work and stuff. And I mentioned that, I love true crime. I always have. I love horror, anything spooky. I love hearing about, the dark side of things. And he's like, oh, have you ever heard of this this TV show, I Caught My Murderer? Or yeah, something like that. Like, I caught my murderer, or I found out who my murderer was. And I had heard of this series before. And I was like, oh yeah, totally. Like, that's an interesting one. And he's like, oh yeah, so I was actually on an episode of that, acting. And I'm like, oh, that's super cool. Like, like, what was your role, kind of thing. And he's like, oh, well, I was the murderer because they casted me because I looked exactly like the guy who was the murderer in the show. And I was just kind of like, oh, that's wasn't expecting that. So yeah, after that I got a little bit of a weird feeling, because yeah, why would you look exactly like the murderer? That's a little concerning. Clearly I have a type for creeps, but anyways, I got out of there as fast as I could, and I think I ghosted him after that as, an immature 20-year-old. But yeah, that was my encounter with the guy that looked exactly like a serial killer. Yeah, thanks for listening. Love the show.
So what do you make of that? Is it a step too far?
I don't know. I don't think that's creepy. It's not his fault he looks like a killer.
Definitely be creepy if he was also questioned in the crime.
Yes, that would change this completely.
I played the killer, and and not twisting all this is it was actually a suspect.
But like,
yeah, then I'd be like, ugh.
All I heard was he was an actor getting work.
But he did look like the killer. I think there are some killers that if someone bared a striking resemblance to
Ted Bundy
was known to be handsome, but if you look just like him, I'd be like, I can't do it.
But I don't know. Is he funny? Is the guy really funny? Like, I think I could get over it if he made me laugh.
The reason I would want nothing to do with this person would be their messy house. Like, who would...
I was just going to say, that's the worst part of this
If you were going on a date and you thought there was a chance that they were going to come back to your house for a drink after, messy is one thing, but as she says, dirty, that's a whole different thing. Dirty would imply like food wrappers, dirty dishes left out, dust and crap everywhere.
That's a red flag in itself because he thinks that's acceptable to like have company over. That's scary.
On a first date, if that's
scary.
what he shows you on date number 1, what's lurking behind that? Yikes.
Like, and I don't know because I wasn't there, but I would bet my left kidney there was no fitted sheet on his bed. Bare mattress.
Oh, just the mattress with like a dirty quilt on it?
Yeah, that's exactly what a sleeping bag.
That's
unzipped, an unzipped sleeping bag.
God. Maybe the killer thing is like the straw that broke the camel's back. So all of that considered, yeah, it is a creepy thing to do, to look like a killer with such a dirty apartment. But all this to say, those are the creep encounters we've got to experience tonight on Volume 31. And I dare say this is one of our better collections. I've enjoyed every one of these stories and learned a lot from them.
Well, they're nice and light. Most of them are, unlike our first story, they're just kind of light and airy.
It had to be that way. If you're going to start with like abuse of a dog and touching babies with your shirt off, you have to lighten it up after that. So we had that, like we came out of the gates running and then we had a whole bunch of palate cleansers afterwards.
It should have just been all stories from Newfoundland.
It should have been. I don't want to steal your thunder here, but my favorite story of the night is certainly the guy in Newfoundland who drove the old motorcycle with no brakes and hit the guy with his pants down, wearing a bicycle helmet inexplicably.
It's just such a wonderful reminder that truth is truly stranger than fiction.
But that said, Heidi's creep at the mall in Fredericton, putting the Polaroid photos in the pants, that was also so unexpected, and that one will stick with me. I've bought clothes and stuff before and found things in the pocket. I remember I bought a pair of pants or something, or maybe it was a jacket actually, at Value Village, a used clothing store, and it had a zip-up pocket on the inside, and I found a bunch of money in there.
Really?
Well, a bunch. I think I found like $15, but still,
that's a bunch of money.
So I found a ton of money in there. I think I paid $10 for the jacket, and I just thought, wow, that's cool. But I've never thought of the dark side of finding things in clothes, like a photo of this guy's junk at the mall in Fredericton.
Stories like that just make me think about like how weird people are. And like, so like what he gets off work, goes home and is like, I should take my Polaroids now.
For tomorrow's.
Or like maybe he's got to hurry because like his show is on at 7 or,
Yeah, I think there should be some kind, just like with to get a firearms license, I think you all should have a Polaroid camera license.
Yes, absolutely. That's a really good idea.
That was a great story. But anyway, all this to say, it's a tie. All the stories were my favorite.
Oh, they always are.
If you had your story aired on Volume 31 of Encounters with Creeps, go to thecanadiangothic.com/contact and click the Claim Your Swag Pack button. I'll send you out something as a thank you for having your story shared. And for anyone out there who hasn't yet had their story shared, but did have a creep encounter or has something to say about one of the creep encounters we heard tonight, go to that same website, thecanadiangothic.com/contact. Use the voice recorder and share your creepy creep encounter with us. We're excited to hear it. Let's put a bow on this one. Madelayne, it's been great. Let's do it again soon.
Super soon.
I want to thank you for joining us for this episode of the Canadian Gothic. I want to end here with a huge and sincere thanks to every one of you who took their time to share your creep encounters with us. As I always say, these stories are a great reminder to keep our eyes open and our wits about us. And to anyone out there who still has a story to share, we're going to be doing many more episodes in this series, and we want to feature your story. You can get it to us at thecanadiangothic.com/contact. If you got something to share, go to the site now. The voice recorder is very easy to use, and don't worry if you make any mistakes or misspeak. I'll edit and make sure you sound your best before anything goes to air. We're excited to hear from you. Now, with that said, I want to give a few more thanks, and then we'll wrap this up. First, a big thanks to Madelayne for sharing another evening with me and with you, the listeners of the Canadian Gothic. A big thanks to Monty, Datta, who contributes the music for this episode, and Linz from the Dystopian Simulation podcast, who provides our intro and outro voiceovers. And then lastly, but most importantly, a massive thanks goes out to each and every one of you listening, as without your interest and your support, this show would be as pointless as it would be impossible. Now, on the topic of support, let me thank the newest subscribers to the premium feed. Brittany, Sandy, and Kendall, we appreciate you. And for anyone else who'd like to support the show, you can do it in a variety of ways. First of all, a premium feed subscription costs just a couple bucks a month, and that money will fund the creation of new episodes. But their premium feed will also give you those episodes 2 days early, get them to you ad-free, and give you access to a back catalog of episodes. That sounds like something you're interested in? You can go premium at thecanadiangothic.com/subscribe. And even if you don't want to go premium, you can still support the show by sharing this episode on social media and telling all your like-minded friends that they should listen. Your support is very much appreciated. So with all that said, until next time, take care of each other, hug your loved ones tight, and let me know if you see anything weird.
Thank you for listening to Canadian Gothic.
Hi, Jordan and Madelayne. This is really funny. My name is Jess. You had me on your Creep Encounters episode 30. I just wanted you guys to know that I was just so excited to hear that you thought it was creepy, because I was like, was that creepy that a guy wanted to cut out my eyeballs? I also
What was he gonna do
did
with
not
them?
afterwards.
Think about
That
it.
was hilarious. Jordan, you describing him as looking like Elvis Presley, I just about died laughing, because I'm like, no, what I was trying to describe, like, he had like the facial expressions and creepiness of Randall from Monsters Incorporated, but like slicked back greasy hair. I'm pretty sure he was a pimp. Like scrawny white tattoos, like everything about him super creepy, and a drug dealer. And I didn't want to say all that stuff, but anyways, you guys just made my night. So I just listened to the episode. Thank you so much. And yeah, it's just great. You guys are awesome. I love listening to the show. It just makes me so happy. Thank you.